Welcome, and this is the next installment of the reading of my novel on His Majesty's Secret Service. We're in Chapter 3, picking up where we left off in the last part. With that thought, she closed her eyes and slipped off. She woke with the sound of the pilot's voice, reminding the passengers to put their tray tables up and straighten their seat backs, fasten their seatbelts, and prepare for landing and arrival in London. Looking down out of the window, she could descry the dark, grey, formless land of England below, a far cry from the pristine sun and coast of Morocco. She sighed. When she had gathered her luggage, a driver met her, holding up a sign, Cosmic Transports. He took her bags and said, "Welcome back, Commander." He drove her to see N. When she arrived at the offices, Sterling Farthing consoled her. "I'm so sorry for your loss," he said. She sat on his desk, leaned in so that their foreheads touched, and said, "So am I." "Is there anything I can do?" he asked, still pining for her as ever. She smiled weakly. "You're so beautiful, but I must weather the storm alone." The intercom buzzed. "Is she here yet?" "Yes," Sterling Farthing buzzed back. Then he looked at her resignedly. "You should go in." She stood, took a deep breath, then entered the double, red-leather, padded doors. 008, come in! I offer you on behalf of the Queen and the Secret Service our deepest sympathies." "Thank you, N," she replied. "Now, I want you to take some time off to grieve." "But what about the Queen? She's missing." "We've got every available agent looking for her. Look, ever since 007 was, well, let's just say gone missing, presumably dead, your service has been exemplary. Concerning the Queen, there is suspicion on Kate. The Queen had publicly humiliated her. William is distraught. Take time off. Go home if you like. Now, where were you born?" "I was born in Pendle Forest in Blackburnshire." "Then you are a witch," he chuckled. "And you have Egyptian in your ancestry as well, correct?" Jane nodded. "Then you also are a pharaoh, a queen." Jane appreciated his levity, trying to relieve some of the tension of the situation. "If the Queen is not found?" she queried. "Then William will be made king," answered Anne. "His father Charles is too old, and has already announced he will relinquish the throne to William." She takes out her pistol and hands it to N. "I just may resign." "We'll talk about that later," he said, taking her pistol. "Now go, grieve." At home she packed and ready for her trip. Once she was packed and ready, she took a cup of tea in her back garden. It was late summer, and she sat looking at her garden. The sun was high, the heat was soothing, and the breeze was that seductive stirring that only came in the hottest of months. As she gazed at the baby pine tree in her yard, she caught a glimmer in the corner of her eye. As she peered closer, she noticed that countless spiders had woven their webs amid the branches of the pine tree. Their gossamer threads shimmered as they caught the sunlight in their silver strands. It was an amazing natural phenomenon, as she realized that even in summer her pine tree was adorned with nature's tinsel as if it were Christmas. The branches stirred, and a pale shadow of a moon hung in a clear blue sky like a ghost. It was intoxicating, and she drank in the view like a magic potion for her soul. When the sun set, there was a hush, a lull, not a breath of breeze in the air, as if the world of nature held its breath. Everything was as still and quiet as a graveyard. Then, when the sun dipped below the horizon completely, there again was a stir, and the breeze that marked the turning of the tide, and the coming of night, and it began to weave its way among the trees. A rhythmic rocking and swaying filled the summer leaves and the pine needles, and she luxuriated in the coolness. Chapter 4. Fragile, Liquid, Perishable. The next day at London Airport, Jane, bowler hat, rolled umbrella, neatly folded Times and all, felt faintly ridiculous. She felt totally so when she was treated with the deference due to her title and shown into the VIP lounge before takeoff. At the ticket desk, when she had been addressed as Dame, she had looked behind her to see who the girl was talking to. She really must pull herself together and damn well be Dame Hilary Day. The disguise was essential, due to the fragility of the current state of affairs and the loss of the Queen. Jane received a raised eyebrow from the very English barman when she ordered tequila. Neat. She quickly dispatched of her tequila, straight, no chaser, and stood aloof from the handful of other privileged passengers in the gracious lounge, trying to feel like a baroness. Then she remembered the real Dame Hilary Day, perhaps now growlaching a hind with her bare hands somewhere up in the Scottish glens. There was nothing of the baroness about Jane. She really must get rid of the inverted snobbery that, with its opposite, is ingratiated in so many of the English. She must stop acting a part, being a stage noblewoman. She would just be herself, and if she gave the appearance of a rather rough-hewn baroness, the easy-going kind, Well, that at least was like the real one up in Scotland. She drew down the Times that had been carrying as an extra badge of top peopleship, and picked up the Daily Express, and asked for another tequila. Then, with its twin jets whispering far back of the first-class cabin, the Swissair Caravelle was airborne, and her mind was reaching forward to the rendezvous that had been so briefly detailed by the Zurich solicitors. Dame Hilary would be met at the airport by one of the best tour guides. She would be seeing a wonderful time, and she need not think of work at all, just grieve and exercise her demons. Her excitement mounted as she consumed a delicious lunch served by a delicious steward, and the winter-brown checkerboard of France fled backwards distantly below. Now there was scattered snow and barren trees as they crossed the tiny hillocks of the Vosges, then permanent snow and ice floes of the Rhine, a short stop at Basel, and then the black crisscross of Zurich airport, and "Fasten your belt straps" in 3 languages, and they were planing down, a slight bump, the roar of jet deflection, and then they were taxing up the apron in front of the imposing, very European-looking buildings decked with the gay flags of the nations. At the Swiss desk air inside the door, a man was standing beside the reception counter. As soon as she appeared in the entrance, he came forward and said, "Dame Hilary Day."